Hey friends, thanks so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. You know, as we face a time where it's clear that spiritual warfare is alive and well on planet Earth, there's a battle between good and evil taking place, and I think we can extrapolate that battle between good and evil is currently occurring in the scientific areas of study as well. Everything from chemtrails to geoengineering of our weather systems to weather warfare, from human experimentation, transhumanism, chimeras. There's just so much to keep our eye on that it becomes very difficult to do so. So to that end, in this interview, I've invited our friend Waldemar Perez back on the line. We had Waldemar on in the spring of 2015, and at that point, Waldemar did not have a YouTube channel. He has since started one. It's called Verify Events Research, which he began in June, and I'll link below to it. Please subscribe to Waldemar's channel. He's doing excellent work. And in this interview, we're going to talk about his latest, human experimentation. He already has part 1 up on YouTube. Part 2 will be posting right around the time this interview hits. And part 3 is coming later in the week. Waldemar, welcome back.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sean. It's nice talking to you.
Well, it's nice talking to you, my friend. I have to tell you, when you come at the world with a spiritual sense and a Christian point of view, you have to be concerned about what's going on in this world. It seems that the powers that be are hell-bent on taking us down, my friend. Take a look at what's going on with Fukushima in the Pacific Ocean. Take a look at what's going on with chemtrails, geoengineering, the engineered drought, GMOs. The list is long, and you've been working on human experimentation and exposing it. And I just want to share with the audience what we're talking about here. There's an article here from MIT Technology Review. Human animal chimeras are gestating on U.S. research farms. For anyone who thinks that this is 10, 20, 30 years away and we need not worry about it today, you're wrong. You need to understand that there is a new approach to generating human organs inside of pigs and sheep. And it won't be long before these same scientists want to start creating half human, half animals. It's a brave new world, a scary world. And Waldemar, I just want to turn it over to you to see how you'd like to start this conversation, because I know from the historic perspective, we can point to experimentation, CIA experimentation on the American public covertly, going all the way back to the 40s and 50s, everything from fluoride in the water to the Tuskegee experiment. Where would you like to start to help frame this conversation up for the audience?
You started pretty well. In the case of the chimeras, that's not science fiction or in the future. That's right now. I have pictures on my presentation on part 2. You're going to see photos of rats, lab rats with human ears on their back. So these are half human, half animal hybrids, and they are here. And you can do a quick search on the internet and find out about cats that glow in the dark, tobacco plants that glow in the dark, bananas that have the flu shot inside. And this is the classified public available information that anybody can verify in a quick with a quick Google search. We have the case of a company in California called Epicide that developed a type of corn that has a contraceptive embedded in it. So we are headed into very troubling times. You mentioned the case of fluoride. It's a mass medication of the public, of the U.S. public, and only 8 countries in the world do this. But we have to worry about other things. And in my other presentation, eugenics, covert medicine, and the population in the 21st century, there are plenty of evidence and studies that have been put out. Like, for example, the U.S. Geological Survey found that many jurisdictions in the United States contain chemicals like birth control chemicals in the water, antidepressants in the water. It makes you wonder how all these chemicals make it to the water supply in significant quantities, because the argument is, people dump their birth control pills into the water. I don't know how many people do that to make it a significant problem or issue. If the trash can is right next to the toilet, I really don't know. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder all these things. But I don't remember exactly what triggered my interest in human experimentation, but one thing probably led to the other because I'm been researching a lot of things like false flag and the use of actors in foreign policy and things of that nature. But I decided to put together this project. And part one, to understand what's really going on, you need to look at the historical perspective first. And in part one, we cover subjects like the case of Quaker Oats and Massachusetts Institute of Technology feeding children radioactive oatmeal back in the day, just to study, the effect of radiation in the human body. We also have the case of injecting hospital patients unknowingly and without their consent with radiation, injecting cancer into hospital patients, also putting nuclear workers in gas chambers to test fluoride toxicity back in the day before they started putting fluoride in the water supply. People don't, that's an interesting part of the fluoride history that people don't know, what it has to do with the nuclear development program. I was completely shocked when I found all of this, and it's well documented in a book called The Fluoride Deception. That is a must read for people that study all these things. It's very troubling, very troubling. And not only do we subject U.S. population to experimentation, where when it is difficult, like in the case of pharmaceutical companies, to do this, they go overseas and they use foreigners. And we've been doing this in the Caribbean, for example, in the island of Puerto Rico. It's a big guinea pig lab for companies like Monsanto, the U.S. military, testing all sorts of chemicals, ammunitions down there. So, and then part two, what I intended to do with part two is have more recent cases, like in the last 30 years. We cover the cases of, for example, the use of foster care children, which is something that the public doesn't know happens, but it's very frequent that all these children in foster care are used for drug testing. And there is a good documentary by a mainstream media organization. In this case, it's the BBC, covered this story back in 2001. We have the case of Gulf and Iraq war veterans. They were subjected to vaccine research. It is believed that not only did they test it unproven vaccines for anthrax, but also for things like AIDS. So it's very troubling, very troubling.
Yeah, it is very troubling. And it's very troubling because I think there's a slippery slope for anybody who respects God's creation, anybody who respects the purity and sanctity of DNA. It's normal to worry about these things, especially, Waldemar, when we've seen the powers that be abuse their privilege of science and scientific experimentation. Many of the things you've just talked about were done covertly, right? The Tuskegee experiment in giving the black men syphilis, giving people cancer on purpose, chemtrails. There's so many covert programs. And my friend Sophia Smallstorm has done excellent research in this area as well. She has a presentation I invite everybody to look for on YouTube. It's called From Chemtrails to Pseudo-Life. And she talks about Morgellons, she talks about transhumanism, and the agenda to transform human beings as God created them into something else, into this Illuminati version for humanity, this New World Order version of humanity. So I just want to circle back quickly to chimeras and ask you, why should we be concerned about chimeras? Because the argument, of course, from the powers that be and the scientists would be, well, we're trying to benefit humanity. So to use a lab rat to grow a human ear to help a person who has lost an ear in a car accident is a wonderful thing. But it's a slippery slope into absolute Frankenstein science, is it not?
Yes, well, you're absolutely right on that. But far more important than that, or I guess that's where you're going, is that the potential for abuse by the powers that be and the military. Like, for example, it's been reported by respected news organizations that there are rumors that the military is working on GMO humans, and to make people more smarter, to make people to make soldiers lack empathy, so that they are better killers. it's a slippery slope, like you said. And as long as the public is not interested or very interested in these sort of issues, they'll do whatever we let them do. If we, I don't know if you're familiar with this fact, but there are generals talking about the potential of GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, for military applications. They state that GMOs can be used as covert biological weapons of mass destruction, versus nuclear weapons, where it's more politically difficult to sell a nuclear attack on a country. But a GMO, you can just use it covertly to perhaps reduce the population of a targeted country. Just if you want to take over their resources, you sell them the GMOs. And I think that's why Russia, China, Brazil, all these countries are starting to fight back the GMOs. Everybody's starting to realize that the so-called benefits of that, oh my God, we're all going to die if we don't feed the world with GMOs. Everybody's starting to see through the propaganda, and all the touted benefits are not there. So people are wondering if this is just a scam, which it is. And they're also starting to find out about many other issues. And I'm happy to see that finally, according to respectable surveys, finally the conspiracy theory, how you call it, calling people conspiracy theorists is finally starting to go down. So people are realizing that some of these so-called conspiracy theories are real. And all I do when I confront people on all these issues, the first thing you have to do is to have documentation with you. I walk around with copies of Operation Northwoods on my phone, copies of all sorts of stuff, bookmarks, so that I can quickly go to the document and tell people, verify it, and you will see that this is not something that somebody came up with. This is real. This is a documented history that we don't know. And that's how we educate the public, because at the end of the day, all our efforts as activists is to inform the public. And you have no more than 3 to 6 minutes to reach anybody out there. Otherwise, people just go and watch, the usual Scandal or House of Cards or Naked Bachelors in Paradise, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't watch any of those, but anyways.
Yeah, you're right. It can be a challenge to keep people's attention, but once people are interested in these topics, and once they understand that the term conspiracy theorist is nothing more than a CIA-created pejorative to try to get people to not research these types of topics, then their attention is piqued. And generally, once you go down the rabbit hole, you just keep going. People get very, very interested in these topics because the truth is much, much more interesting than fiction. And the official narrative on most of these topics is very, very boring. It's very, very pedestrian because they don't want people to suspect that vaccines are dangerous. They don't want people to suspect that the Pentagon is working on super soldiers. You mentioned those aims just a second ago in this interview, and I want to read this article, guys. If you don't think that the powers that be are like I've often said, as you know, Waldemar, that at this point in human history, it's the banksters versus humanity. As our friend Michael Rivero often says, all wars are banker wars. These people want to change human beings into their own sick, twisted, satanic vision. And one of the things that they're doing, Waldemar, they're using science, they're using medicine, they're trying to use transhumanism and technology to transform human beings into super soldiers. And this article from the Washington Post, I think, speaks directly to that. You say verify events with data. Here's a little data. The tiny pill fueling Syria's war in turning fighters into superhuman soldiers. Okay, Syria, superhuman soldiers. Who is the Pentagon backing in Syria? It is ISIS. And listen to this. A powerful amphetamine tablet based on the original synthetic drug known as phenethylene. Captagon is what they're calling this thing. Captagon quickly produces a euphoric intensity in its users, allowing Syria's fighters to stay up for days, killing with a numb, reckless abandon. One Lebanese user says, "You can't sleep or even close your eyes, and whatever you take to stop it, nothing can stop it. I feel like I own the world high," another user says, "like I have power nobody has." And then these people go on killing sprees just like the puppet masters want them to. It's really, really, truly sick and twisted, Waldemar. And this is, again, the slippery slope into absolute worldwide global despotism under a one-world government, right, where there is no law, there is no natural law, there is no rights for human beings, just a prison planet, a plantation on which we all must suffer as their slaves. And I think that's the point of this conversation. It gets a little unwieldy to talk about all of these different areas, but I just wanted to point to that particular document as evidence to how they are changing human beings and shaping human behavior to their own ends. And in this case, it's violent death and destruction at the hands of these Syrian, quote-unquote, freedom fighters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Sean. Everybody that goes to war they're high on something. They do give some of these drugs to our military. I know people that have mentioned, being given these pills where they can stay up for days, and then they come back with all these psychiatric issues. And a lot of people also here. And also, before I forget, all these information goes back to and all this research go back to the times of MK Ultra, where they gave people LSD, marijuana, all sorts of drugs to study how they could engineer the perfect spy, how they could engineer the perfect soldier, and I think that all major militaries know and understand that when you go to war, the opponent is under some sort of drug. But also, I think that it has side effects. It compromises your ability to think critically and make informed decisions, and decisions that come down to life or death. So I think that there is technology is a wonderful thing, but also has side effects, and some people, we tend not to talk too much about side effects. Like in the case of, for example, cell phones. I remember 20-30 years ago when the first cell phones came out. People were all excited about it, but there were people concerned about the radiation impact of cell phones and living close to a big antenna. Now, finally, after 20 or 30 years, the data is there to confirm that, yes, indeed, it's a big carcinogen in the environment.
Yes, that's absolutely on the record that cell phones are now related and linked to brain cancer. And you said that technology is a wonderful thing. And you're right. It's like the printing press, right? The fiat funny money printing press could be a wonderful thing in the hands of benevolent leaders. But what we have is the funny money printing press in the hands of malevolent bankers who want to enslave humanity. Same worry with technology. Technology that is abused or used for eugenics on purpose to hurt people is a very real concern. And I wanted to ask you this. I know you're very aware of the weather wars, the chemtrailing. And I mentioned earlier in the interview that presentation by my friend Sophia Smallstorm. She did a second one, which is even more alarming, and it's called this, guys: From Chemtrails to Pseudo-Life, the Dark Agenda of Synthetic Biology. And in that, she really gets in deep to the Morgellons issue. Do you worry about nanotech? Do you worry about some of these other things? Chemtrails, we know there's a covert program. We know it because of the Air Force documents. Do you worry about these covert programs and weather warfare and geoengineering as much as I do?
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned nanotech because when I started working for the Navy back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I did some, it was mostly a literature research on nanotechnology, the potential for military applications. And we were worried about, the scale of miniaturization of technologies. Like now you have cameras, you can spy on people with very tiny devices. We had, in the case of 9/11, the thermite that was used was a very high-tech, only made by very specific labs here in the United States, called nanothermite. And it's been proven that with scientific research and scientific papers, that's one of the things that they use that day. And again, we don't have all the information about 100% what happened on 9/11, but we have those samples that have been carefully analyzed and this available material that any researcher can take and prove for themselves that it was there. So nanotech is a big problem. Now you're going to have the potential for manipulating life at the molecular and cell level. So that gives there is the potential, obviously, for abuse. So yeah, in the case of chemtrails, I've done some research in that area, and it's more than obvious to me what's happening. But again, that's another subject you have to introduce carefully, because people start, just shutting down when you start talking about, spraying stuff from the sky for geoengineering purposes. But there is a growing sense of reality. I was just watching right now Redacted Tonight by RT. And it's funny because one of the things that we're talking about was geoengineering and how dangerous it is to dump all these megatons of aluminum dioxide, I believe it is, into the atmosphere. Some of this stuff will stay there for years. So
yeah, and in the environment for years. It's aluminum and barium.
Exactly, and lithium also. So yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of government bureaucrats and government scientists that think they're real experts, and they don't consult with anybody else. They just make a decision, which is usually based on politics, and then everybody has to follow. And that's it's more of a dictatorial scientific establishment. And then I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody anymore. I don't trust. I do my own research, even if it is about vaccines or whether it is about fluoride, the media line. I just don't trust anybody. I just have to listen to everybody, read everything, and believe nothing until I do my own research, like Bill Cooper used to say. It's the only way. It's the only way. Why would you trust a politician like Obama that gets national television and supposedly cry about a bunch of kids that died 3 years ago? Even back then, he didn't cry as much. And then he doesn't cry about all the human beings we're killing in the Middle East with all these inhumane and I would argue racist drone strikes. So anyways, that's a little rant right there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I just want to get back to something you said, though, before we lose you here. And it's you said that there are bureaucrats. So much of this is run by bureaucrats who really don't care about the people, don't answer to anybody. But it's even worse than that, right? Because we know that Theodore Roosevelt said, behind the ostensible government sits enthroned an invisible government, owning no allegiance and acknowledging no responsibility to the people. It's the deep state, which is what Peter Dale Scott calls it, and the deep state is truly answerable to no one. So when they use chemtrails to, what I would now say is to terraform the Earth for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is to utilize HAARP and manipulate weather systems globally, the deep state is the real problem. And the deep state and the attached subsidiaries of the Pentagon, right? The military-industrial complex corporations. The deep state is our biggest concern, Waldemar, because it's hard enough to rein in a criminally corrupt government when we can point to actual criminals that we see out in public, like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, etc., etc., etc. It's hard enough to keep control of our republic for the benefit of liberty, even when we can point to the bad guys. Now, in the deep state, there are puppet masters above those bad guys that we can barely even identify at all. I mean, you can point to people like George Soros, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, but their middle managers are invisible. They are literally part of the invisible government. This is the type of information you want to share with your friends, neighbors, and colleagues to wake them up to really what, at this point, is a battle for the soul of humanity.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. And I want to just briefly touch on one of the latest videos I made called "Boquet of Lies," because that's exactly right. The problem is the deep state, and JFK warned us about this secret government back then, and it is believed that that's one of the reasons why they killed him. And you can hear the speech that he made 10 days before his assassination, warning us about these secret armies. He talked about their own scientific establishment and all of that. And the purpose of that, I made that video just to show people that the biggest problem we have is deception. People trust the media, people trust the politicians, and once you see how bad and how deep all these lies go, you will be. I mean, it's very disturbing to research all this stuff. I especially in the case of human experimentation, it was kind of depressing for me when I put together all of this picture. I'm like, oh my God, but in that particular video, you can see how the politicians lie. They lie with actors. They use actors in war propaganda and for domestic propaganda, and how it ties into foreign policy, and how they use it. And all of this is well documented on papers and mainstream media organization. You just have to connect the dots, and I believe that's what Bouquet of Lies does to some extent, is connect all these dots and see how everything interconnects. So anyways, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and Bouquet of Lies is an excellent piece that you produced there at Verify Events Research on YouTube. I hope everybody will take the time to subscribe. You've got about 204, 205 subscribers right now. Guys, there's no reason we can't double that subscriber base for Waldemar. He's really working hard trying to get this information out, and we really ought to support him. I think when you take a look at the preponderance of the evidence, Waldemar, everything from the secret space programs to the geoengineering of the planet, the terraforming, when you take a look at the vaccine programs that are causing autism, and then the powers that be are trying to roll out mandatory vaccination bills like SB 277 in California under criminal Governor Jerry Brown, it's evident that there is a force of darkness in control of the major governments in the Western world, certainly in the United States of America. And I hope there is a pushback coming. I know there's a pushback, and we're seeing it every single day in the alternative media. But I hope there's also a pushback coming globally. And before we let you go, I want to ask if you think there is. Because I'm seeing some pushback as it pertains to other countries banning GMOs. I'm seeing a pushback against vaccines like the HPV vaccine from Merck in various countries, banning it. I'm seeing a pushback from people like Vladimir Putin pointing his finger at the oligarchs and the lies coming from the Obama administration and the White House and the Pentagon. I'm seeing pushback geopolitically, globally. Are you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you can see it. The public is finding out all these things that used to be called conspiracy theories. And again, it's about. I think I see the internet as the biggest strength is speed learning. That's why I come up with short videos, because people are not going to sit down and watch a 3-hour documentary. You need to reach them in 3 to 6 minutes. And you can see, like you said, the GMOs is one issue. People are waking up. It doesn't matter if they label the GMOs or not. It won't make much difference. The difference is voting with your money, and people are buying non-GMO products right and left. So same thing with marijuana. They bash marijuana for years, trying to suppress it, and now even the Cancer Institute is acknowledging that it has cancer curing properties. So the internet is the biggest tool we have in all these efforts. So absolutely. And to quote Zbigniew Brzezinski, there is a global political awakening of enormous proportions happening right now, and they are worried. I can see that they are worried and that they are running short of time. So absolutely.
Well, that's the good news. And, I always want to try to leave people with a bit of good news, even when we talk about these onerous and rather scary topics, because without good news, it would be hard to get out of bed in the morning, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, all right, Waldemar, I really do thank you for your time. I know we've just scratched the surface here, but really I just wanted to tease your excellent presentations, Human Experimentation Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, which you guys can find on Waldemar's excellent YouTube channel called Verify Events Research. Please look below this YouTube video in the information area, and I will provide a direct link to his channel so you can subscribe. Let's please try to double Waldemar's subscriber base. He really, really deserves the support. Because Waldemar, you're really doing a great job on behalf of all of us, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity of being here. For me, this is 100% activism. I'm not, profiting or anything. I just really, I really want to help. We have serious issues that our kids will have to deal with in the very near future. So this, we have to come together and reach out to conservatives, to libertarians, to liberals. Everybody will have to come together to solve this problem, because divide and conquer is not just theory. It's a practical thing, and they play that on us all the time. So. please don't listen to the media.
Yeah, listen to the alt media. The alt media is trying to expose their tactics, the Hegelian dialectic. And guys, I think the best thing to do is remind people when they want to challenge you on the facts because they've not done any of their own research and they only watch CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and ABC News and the Mockingbird mainstream media, is tell them that the pejorative, quote, conspiracy theorist, end quote, was literally created by the CIA to prevent discourse, because the CIA does not want the American people to be awake to its crimes and the crimes of the deep state.
Yeah, get a copy of CIA Memo 1035-960 and have it in your phone to show to your neighbor how much propaganda they're getting, and it goes back a long way back.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a thrilling interview for me. I always love to talk about these topics with a kindred spirit who's awake and alive and battling for humanity, and that's Waldemar Perez. The YouTube channel is Verify Events Research. Guys, please do subscribe. The link is below, and we very much appreciate your time for tuning in. And Waldemar, thank you for your time and all your work.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll be here trying to help.
All right, my friend, thank you so much. And guys, thanks for your support at sgtreport.com and thelibertymill.com. And please check out the Phaser, where I hand select esoteric and interesting videos and documentaries for you to consider in your spare time. We very much appreciate your activism and your comments as well below this video. Thanks for your support. Have a wonderful week, Waldemar.
Thank you. Have a good day, you too.
All right. And guys, you have a wonderful week too. God bless.